These are our Frenzy Faves.
Well, thanks, Professor. Today, our Frenzy Faves is a Twilight Zone episode. Today, we're going to look at Season 1, Episode 2. Yes, the second episode of the Twilight Zone. Not the first, but the second episode. This one is entitled One for the Angels. And we're going to look at One for the Angels, Season 1, Episode 2. This was directed by Robert Parrish. It was written by Rod Serling. The original air date was October 9th, 1959. In our cast, we have Ed Wynn as Louis J., a.k.a. Lou Bookman, Murray Hamilton as Mr. Death, and we have Dana Dillaway as Maggie Polanski. Professor, wow. Can you tell us about this one?
You bet. So Lou Bookman is an older man, and he calls himself a pitchman. But basically, he sells odds and ends out of a suitcase on city sidewalks. And one day while working, he noticed a man watching him, taking notes in a little notebook. After he heads home to his apartment building, he runs into the local children who, Lou, they love him. And he gives them candy and toys and stuff like that. And he talks with the kids a bit. And he goes up to his room where he finds that same man that was watching him earlier. After kind of chit-chatting and playing footsie with each other for a while, like, what are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out the man is Death. And Lou's time is up at midnight. Now, one of the kids, Maggie from the street, stops by his room to have Lou fix a toy, and she cannot see Death. Lou realizes this is a real deal, so he sends Maggie off to play with the other kids. Lou says he isn't ready to die and wants some additional time because he wants to be able to make one great pitch, which he has never done. He says, I want to make a pitch. I want to make one for the angels. Death says he can delay Lou's departure, but he has to take somebody. Suddenly, there's a commotion outside. Maggie's been hit by a car and hurt very badly. Lou goes to the street where she's laying to help her, and she asks him who that man is over there by the apartment, referring to Death. Lou realizes that she can see Death now, and he decides that he wants to keep Death away from her. The doctor says she's hurt very badly, and we'll know more about her status by midnight. At about 1:45 Lou is on the apartment building stoop when Death arrives, getting ready to take the little girl. Now, Lou gives Death the hard sell of his life. He's selling ties made from remarkable silk. This thread is, pigeons carry it across the oceans and stuff like that. And before they realize it, the clock chimes midnight. Death has missed his appointment. Lou has made the pitch of his life, one for the angels, and he goes off with Death, happy that he's made a pitch for the life of the little girl. I absolutely loved this story. I'm going to call out a couple of negatives just because, just for balance. Lou doesn't appear to be too perturbed. Find somebody popping up in his room. Why'd you get in here? And also modern audiences seeing an older man hanging out with kids all the time might come to a different conclusion than they did in 1959. But I'm a fan of Ed Wynn, and I was back then too. And, I have to admit, seeing him selling his butt off, trying to save Maggie's life, knowing that if he's successful, his own life will be at risk, it made me choke up a little. I have to be honest about that. Here's a story where a man tries to avoid natural consequences, but learns that it is at the cost of the life of a child. And then the man does everything he can to sacrifice himself to save her. I think it's just beautiful. And I have a note in here based on my, those notes. I hope I can get through the podcast talking about this without choking up. And I think I just barely made it. I thought this was a fabulous episode. Chris, what did you think about One for the Angels?
Thanks, Professor. Fabulous episode. I concur. Get some trivia out of the way. Ed Wynn also appeared in Twilight's episode. I think it was entitled 90 Years Without Slumbering. I'm not sure if we're going to cover that or not. Murray Hamilton was the actor who played Mr. Death. Yeah. You might recognize him from the movie The Graduate. He also played the mayor of Amity in the movie Jaws, probably the most recognizable thing you would probably see him in. And he's outstanding in everything. Yes. I think he's a native from North Carolina. Shout out North Carolina.
Oh.
it's so hard to dislike Ed Wynn. He just is such a charming. There's just such a nuance and charm to him, that you don't want to dispel. I'm asking myself, looking at it recently as the episode dated, I think it still holds up, but I can't remember the last time I saw somebody on a sidewalk selling something, with respect to this. Now, I remember as a kid, I would see guys in Detroit selling newspapers on a corner, and that's about as close as I can get. Well, I take that back, too. I lived in a city where a guy would offer sharpening blades, like lawnmower blades or saws. I think somebody would do that. I remember, like, over a summer with respect to that. But you don't see that too much, with the thing. And I don't know what, looking at it at a lens from when I saw it, was this really a fixture of a Anytime Big Town back in the day? And I guess I'd have to assume so. People would peddle stuff, and as much as I've seen it on television movies from that era so many times, I'd have to think this was. It's a great story. I think our actors are asked a lot here, in particular Hamilton, because we see death, and he's got this book, and he's got to take a life at a prescribed time. And we know he can't be dissuaded, because in as much as Wynn is trying to get rid of him and trying to coax him out and trying to trick him with some type of a quote unquote loophole to get out of it, it's really, really telling that, there's no way that you can cheat death, but Wynn does so. And I think he does so in such a way where we see Wynn never wavering. We never see him exasperated like he's losing Hamilton at any point. And next thing we know, he's got ties on his arm. He's buying trivial things like thread, and just the way Wynn sells it is so really, really good. And Hamilton gets exasperated, just keep on going on. And then there's nothing really left for him to sell other than himself. And Hamilton's really like dumbfounded, like, how's that? What are you selling? When it's I'm selling me. You get me by the whole 10 yards. Perfect condition. And then the clock expires, and then we see the little girl is saved. And I really like the lighting that was done. And it's not hokey, but I think it's effective that when we see the shadow going cast on the little girl and the shadow being removed, we know that she's safe. And we get that real telling moment earlier on too, where the little girl sees Hamilton's character, and Wynn is like, panic, what? You could see that guy? Oh no. So then we get the impact of what's about to happen here. And then Lou knows that he's on the clock, and I really, really like it. It's not a big cast. I think it's a charming story, and I really, really applaud the performances. And I think Wynn is perfect. I can't see anybody else in the role, and I think Hamilton really sells it as Death being exasperated. And I think a lot was asked for him you see this character slowly, getting immersed in this pitch. And I think it was a lot asked of him to do that. And I think it really, really worked effectively. And just from a nostalgia feel, there's a clock that shows on the closing credits. I think it's a clock that's on the nightstand of the little girl, and it's shown in the closing credits. And I kid you not, my grandmother and my uncle had a clock very, very similar with the that looked exactly like that was on top of their TV. So that brought back some nostalgia feels for that. Just seeing the little clock there, I kind of got some nostalgia feels watching that. So all in all, I really, really dig this episode.
Yeah. Can you imagine this is the second episode of Twilight Zone and people just like, this show's good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, however many years later, yes, the show is really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was season 1, episode 2 of the Twilight Zone, One for the Angels.
Just another comic day. These are our